right?
Yeah.
So either it can be here or here as far as our movement. So mostly if we want somebody to be mobile and ready to react, they need to be in some kind of anterior tilt, not posterior tilt. Everybody know what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. Think back to peds, right? We talked about that some in peds. So there's my proximal holds. I can use my leg like here, so go in like posterior tilt for me. So once I get her up, I can use my leg to hold there, right? You'll see a lot of therapists do that. If she's really sink down, this is her affected side. So I can bring her up, I can hold her with the back of my leg and my trunk, and then I can use a distal point of control, which is the hand. If I'm facilitating extension, my hand's on the extensors, right? If I'm facilitating flexors, my hand's on the flexors. Yeah? So distal point of control, proximal points of control. NDT would say you've got to have proximal before you have distal. Developmental would say sort of that same thing. Motor control would say, well, whatever works. If that works, grand. If not, then there's other ways that you could. How can you create stability if you don't have proximal stability artificially?
Tapping, brushing, positioning.
Positioning. So how could you position somebody if they didn't have proximal stability that they could still do a task? Support somehow. Lateral support on the elbow, so they could support for their loss of scapular control, doing it in a horizontal plane instead of against gravity. Yeah? Everybody with me on all that? Okay. So we've got this here. So one thing I want you to do is get somebody from posterior tilt to anterior tilt. If you don't feel comfortable piling on here, then you can kind of do it from there or from sideways in the chair, just like on your knee, kind of like. Then I want you to practice doing like a weight shift, so shifting her weight, okay, while she's reaching. From a motor control standpoint, are we going to reach into the air?
No.
What are we going to reach for?
An object.
Okay. Preferably not a cone, okay? There are times that cones are okay, but preferably not a cone. All right, so we're going to go from there, and if I'm going to have her bring something back, so if somebody can give me a water bottle or something to... All right, so we have her reach over there for it, grab a hold, and then the release is really important, right? So NDT would say that's where we're going with it. Motor control would probably line it up so they could do it more themselves, but I might show her what I want to do first, and I might show her the movement by guiding, but then I'm going to set it up so she can do it. Make it such that she can use what she has, but I also might make it so she can strengthen what she needs to. In other words, work a little bit. Another component of this that I want you guys to think about is when we talk about weight bearing. And so when she's right here, she's doing a little bit of weight bearing. Most of the time you'll see like down here to their side or on elbow. When we go to the elbow versus here, what would be the deciding factors? So that would be like on a tray table or the table in front of us. Okay, so why would we do this one versus this one? Okay, so NDT would say work proximal distal, so start proximal and work distal. She might not have elbow extension because of hypertonicity or spasticity, so that might be the only option anyway, because you can't get down here. And that's what you were saying?
Oh, I was saying it also depends on if they've had any other prior injuries to that shoulder, such as shoulder impingements and stuff.
Okay. Where it is as far as the weight and even to the wrist. If they've fallen and broken their wrist and they can't get into extension or it's contracted in the position of flexion. If it is that case, you could maybe put it to the side here so where they're still getting weight throughout everything else, but they're not in so much extension. If they're really low toned, which would be our preferred place? This way or this way? Elbow? Straight.
Up.
Elbow. The reason being, if it's straight, there's nothing here. There's no muscle tone. They're really floppy, so you can overstretch something. You can put pressure, too much pressure, and they can't fight back. They can lock in, like you guys learned, y'all had 460, right? Where, so spinal cord can lock their elbow to create stability when they don't have strength. But if you don't have strength and you lock your elbow, you can also trash your joints more easily. So somebody who has no tone that might get some back, we don't want to be locking our joints. Just like in exercise, you don't want to stand there with your joints locked, okay? So it's the same kind of thing. So if they don't have anything here, our better bet is here, start here, and then go to here, okay? I like to put my hand under here, even when they're weight bearing here, so I know how much pressure is going through that wrist. I've seen way too many people with sore wrists down the road, so I like to put just a pressure there if I can. Even if I have to, I've got pretty big hands, so I can do it. I can put it sort of, you know, on the edge. Now, I don't want to be stimulating flexion there, so if my hand placement messes with that, then I have to, you know, cut bait if I have to. But if I can, I'll try to do that so I can keep track of when I'm having her reach or lean or whatever. What could we put over here that she's doing an ADL task or something that would require her to shift into here?
For grooming supplies.
Okay, so like what's great in the hospital is you pretty much always have a comb or brush came in your kit, and lotion and toothbrush, maybe a bucket of water, and you could have them reach in there, and then they have to cross over. You know what I mean? So you could set up the environment to promote what you're doing, and promote the weight bearing and whatever. It could be on the same thing on the table, you know, on the tray table. They have in the hospital they'll have those nice tray tables that are adjustable. So somebody sit in there at one of those chairs right there with their elbow on the table for me, and then you stay here in weight bearing too. So our two ways to weight bear, both of them. So if we are going to be weight bearing, then one of the things is to make sure that our shoulders in line in either way. And so I'm going to show you a technique that I want you to practice, and then I'm going to stop showing and let you guys try. So you're going to take the back of your hand, it's going to be against the ribs, and then just a little tiny, wherever, you can do it from this direction or this direction, a little tiny, as you push against the ribs, you're going to go in external rotation. And what most people tend to do is do too much. And so when you go, so you're against the ribs, so bring your shoulder forward for me, there we go. You're going to bring the scapula back, but don't pull them so they start to rotate the other way. Got to look with everything. Look with your soft eyes kind of all the way across. So you're just going to align the scapula and then a little tiny break into from the internal rotation that's common into external rotation. Does that make sense? Just a tiny bit. And then I'm in a position where that arm is not more likely to get impinged by being in this kind of place where if you try to move it and put weight on it, you can crunch it more easily. Okay? Just like when you go up, when you go above 90, you've got to externally rotate to clear. The same sort of thing here. You've got to get that into right posture so that you're not more likely to impinge there. And it's not big, it's just little, right? It's just a little bit. It's significant enough to give the support. And then I know I have support. So I can do it that way, stay right there, or I can do it this way. So, oh my gosh. All right. So, sorry, I'm going to be against slight external rotation, and then she could be doing whatever she's going to do again. So the pressure is against the rib cage. It seems weird, not the humerus. Watch that you're not using your fingers in any task that we do today, that you're using as much of your whole hand. Okay? So first I want you guys to practice proximal and finding the proximal and distal key points of control.